All right, we're going to get started. Welcome to MedChefs, Medical Curriculum in Health, Education, and Food Science. You are today going to have an immersion day in the health and food science part of this curriculum, and tomorrow you're going to have an immersion in the health and exercise part of the curriculum. We are going to be filming because we're going to produce these modules here, and this is part of a grant we have to advance this curriculum on this campus and spread it across our other campuses. So why are we doing MedChefs and cramming another thing yet into your curriculum? Well, one of the things is so that you can graduate from medical school and answer one of the most common questions you'll get at your graduation party, which is, what do you think about this diet? The average medical student gets through medical school and has no idea how to evaluate a diet, the one they're eating or the one that's in the latest women's magazine. The other thing is that you are really the first generation that has been raised completely under the USDA's nationwide recommendations for what we should be eating. Some people would say that's been a disaster, and we need to turn that around. The statistics you'll probably hear later today about obesity and heart disease and chronic disease and how they're all interrelated speak for themselves. There is a controversial surgeon in Cleveland Clinic who says, genetics may have loaded the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So that's why this curriculum looks around the two most important aspects of what we consider to be lifestyle medicine, which is how we move our bodies and what we put into it. They have profound effects on health and outcomes at every rotation that you're on, but yet very few individual rotations will ever pull this all together for you. So we hope this is good. You'll find this to be interactive and informative and help you answer your family's questions at your graduation party in 2 years. So with that introduction, we're going to have our first speaker, which is Dr. Cucuzzella, who will talk to us about basic nutrition.
I want you all to relax, okay? This is a couple days that, I think we've given to you that hopefully you can take away from these couple days and do something positive for your own health, which ultimately will translate to better patient care. So I don't want you taking notes. We've got more than enough information out there if you want to dig into the rabbit hole later. But I want you just to kind of think a little bit, open your minds, get to know each other a little better over the next couple days. This is kind of a little bit of a reset after, 6 weeks? You've been on about rotations? I kind of lose count. But you've been pretty busy, just studying, seeing patients, maybe getting a little fresh air between. So maybe if you feel a little better after these next couple days, it will even be a message to you for your career. So let me pull up. I am going to fly through a lot of pictures here because I don't want you kind of looking at or reading slides. So what I'm going to do is just try to set the stage for some ideas that I want you to read and pursue and learn and live and experience and cook and see how your body responds. There's enough medical information in Dr. Lustig's book there to probably, jumpstart you for the next 6 months. But, so this is that classic American Gothic picture, 1930, of the American farmer. And we're trying to bring back small farms in this community. And then hopefully we actually wrote a grant about 3 months ago supporting small farms and supplemental nutrition for lower income so they can actually buy real food. Sarah gave you guys some great information last week. This is nothing new. Let thy food be thy medicine, and let thy medicine be thy food. You guys know about Hippocrates. Pharmacology with an F. So the father of pharmacology said this: all that mankind needs for good health and healing is provided by God and nature. The challenge is for science to go out and find it. This is true. So I love this slide. People are fed by the food industry, which pays no attention to health, and treated by the health industry, which pays no attention to food. And Dr. Now and I are on some think tanks. Nationally, this is actually a movement. There was a white paper published about 2 months ago it's called the Bipartisan Policy Center, and it's a huge policy kind of consortium looking for ways to improve every aspect of American life. And this actually came up. There's a white paper on why don't we teach medical students nutrition. And so here it is. We're an experiment, and that's you guys. You're trying to learn and figure it out. Edison, so I think some smart people in the past have figured this out. The doctor of the future will no longer treat the human frame with drugs, rather cure and prevent the disease with nutrition. Thoreau, you are what you are what you eat. I think Thoreau had it figured out. We're all sculptors and painters, and the material is our own flesh, blood, and bones. This is really important because I want you to carry this forward into everything you do, not just in medicine, but in life. And this is me. This is how I live, and I love it because every day is exciting. The beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, the possibilities are few. So over there, it's probably about 40 books, and that isn't even all the ones I have at home. That's just nutrition. That's just nutrition. So I got interested in nutrition from doing grants on pediatric obesity and then working with the Air Force. Why can't they pass the fitness test? And I got interested in it, and it led me down this path that I haven't yet begun to figure out. So I don't have all the answers, but yeah, read it. Read some more. Read some more. Play with things. But yeah, you're all around with me at Jefferson. Every patient is a new possibility. When we start to close our minds to things, we're kind of done. We have a test and replace model of medicine now. Find a certain substrate in the blood or some lab test or on an x-ray and replace it or eradicate it. This is, you could read that later. Okay, what is a healthy diet? Is there some perfect diet, some perfect health diet? Is that true? Some perfect diet that we all should eat? I don't think so. It's confusing. This is a great article by Gary Tobbs in the New York Times. Why is nutrition so confusing? It spells it out in like 2 pages. It is really confusing. We're all different. Okay, 1984. Okay, don't eat your eggs and bacon. And then 2014, maybe we should all just be eating more butter again. Everything kind of comes full circle. Read that article. I'll share it with you. Do we wait for the government to tell us what to do? I'm scratching my head, and I think maybe not. So here's kind of the food pyramid that was designed in 1977. It started to create a lot of humans shaped like a pyramid. We'll get into more of that later. Okay, so is our natural diet different than other species? Should we eat the same because something shows that this type of diet's good in a chimp or good in a giraffe, it's therefore good for humans? I don't know. Humans are different than other species, but all species, every time we go to the natural habitat, they clearly tell you, do not feed, that alligator in there the human diet. They need alligator diet. And, you talk to the people at the zoos and they see profound miraculous cures when you restore the native diets to, the animals that are in habitation. I don't have all the answers. Okay, so what is it? Here's be your own experiment. So I think it's eat real food and mix it up. There's magic in food combination. So what is the healthy diet? So we're not a bunch of different macronutrients laid out that we're eating carbohydrate, protein, fat, this vitamin. Food together has miraculous properties. There's a book over there by Joe Robinson called Eating on the Wild Side, showing how different nutrients combine, butter and vegetables, oils and vegetables. So in isolation, they're different. So this is my dinner last night. It took about 5 minutes because I had some pulled chicken from a slow cooker, bunch of veggies, grilled in olive oil, a little kale, cheese, red wine, mix it up, and it's good. You got like everything in that bowl. We gotta, have some fun. I've had a pretty active day, so I could cheat and have a little dessert. I'm not carbohydrate intolerant, so there's only one ice cream in the grocery store that doesn't have high fructose corn syrup. It's a Breyer's Natural Vanilla, just basically sugar cream and some eggs, dark chocolate and little wild berries, mix it together. That's pretty good. My daughter laughs at me every morning because I make these things, the stinky omelets. So this was this morning. It's got some guacamole, some beef in there from the slow cooker, pretty much everything that was left in last night's dinner thrown in. Grill it up and you're good, for morning. Dr. Now said this, so what you put in is what you put in. What you put in is what you put in. Do you put stress in your body? Do you put good movement in your body? Do you put good food in your body? Do you put joy in your body, love in your body? So we want to teach you the joy of preparing and eating good food. This shouldn't be a regimen. Just like tomorrow we'll go into exercise. If we regiment something or tell you to restrict something or deprive yourself of something, is that going to last? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't see it happening, because we can't just implement this stuff. You've got to learn to love it. Gosh, I learned from smart people, and I've had the privilege to associate with some really smart people. This one gentleman here over to the right, his name is Dr. Daniel Lieberman, and he wrote this book, The Story of the Human Body. And he's the chair of evolutionary biology at Harvard. And he doesn't treat patients, but he's probably studied more about the human body than probably anyone walking the planet today. He travels the world now into indigenous societies to see how they live and see what diseases they have. And he likes running, so we've had a good collaboration, because he wants to learn more about running from me, and I want to learn everything from Dan. His book's over there, awesome book. So he's this is his premise. We've evolved to run and eat a diversity of real food, but our bodies really do crave sugar. We're designed to kind of survive and store food. So this is true. Nothing in biology or medicine makes sense except in the light of evolution. Meaning every adaptation of the human body has a reason, and we have to understand that reason before I think we can understand treatments. Go back and figure out, okay, why are we here? Why is the gut behave like this? These different bacteria, the microbiome, epigenetics is huge. DNA is not destiny. Dr. Now mentioned, epigenetics, meaning, okay, we have this gene set, but it's like hardware and software, so things are constantly turned on and off. Yeah, so that's apply the science to how our body works. Okay, so here's just kind of a timeline here. So this is going back in millions of years. Okay, so way back when, the species, and then evolving into the Homo, ate fruits, tubers. Eventually, we developed ways to get meat. Now, there's a whole theory here that even before tools, there's evidence that the human body was eating meat. And this is the whole persistence hunting. The human body is really efficient at running and tracking things. So yeah, so our brains, this is when the human brain started to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Guts started to get shorter and smaller. And our bodies started to seek and be able to process these high-quality fats and proteins, mostly to support brain growth. So our brains consume about 400 to 500 calories a day, all the time. Our brains are pretty hungry organs. Cooking changed everything. Cooking changed everything in how we ate. And, for good for a lot of reasons, but then later maybe not so good depending on what you cook. Now we kind of do other kind of hunting, fishing, but that's all. And then agriculture is really just a blip on the screen. But yeah, so someone says, gosh, you should just go and humans should just eat vegetables, tubers, and fruits, and that's the optimal human diet. I'm questioning that, because it's probably not how we got here, and it's probably not who we are. If you choose to do that, it may be true, but there could be something else there. That's just the way it is. Okay, mismatched diseases. Dan writes about this in his book. So what does he mean by mismatched diseases? So, okay, we have evolved to be living and eating in a certain way, and you throw us within 1 or 2 generations into a completely different environment, and what happens? And the list of these diseases that could be attributed, associated, not direct causation, to lifestyle, because Dan's traveled to all these places on the globe that don't have any of these illnesses, and within 1 or 2 generations of them becoming modernized or moving, they start to get these illnesses. So it's just something to think about. So here's kind of the transition through time. As we got into the agricultural and industrial area, infectious disease really sprung up as people started to live in communities, started to live in cities, sanitation. Infectious disease kind of shot off the charts. And we've gotten pretty good at dealing with infectious disease. It's one of the real true successes of modern medicine. Look at antibiotics, what they've done. Sanitation, public health, clean water, washing your hands, right? Yeah, all that stuff is made miraculous. And we're starting to kind of lose a little ground now as the bugs are getting smarter. That's normal evolutionary processes. But with metabolic and chronic diseases, we aren't making a dent. And, read Lustig's data, and, by the 2050, estimated in most Western societies, 40 to 50% of people will have overt diabetes, not even the pre-diabetes that probably is the bigger kind of iceberg, below the surface. This was a fascinating slide because I'm trying to figure out how we get coronary disease. You know, and do you think it's just about your cholesterol level? Yeah, so definitely not. I can tell you right now that high cholesterol does not equal coronary disease. Lowering cholesterol does not equal reducing coronary disease. It's not, you know, find, replace, treat, fix model. So I went to the, there was an obesity summit at WVU main campus, and there's a real smart guy from UC Davis. He was one of the USDA leads, PhD, researcher in all this obesity stuff, and he showed this slide about the combustion products of sugars and fats, meaning, you know, I've got a little Prius out there. If the thing's cruising in electric mode, it doesn't really add anything kind of noxious to the environment, but if I floor it or if I decided to, you know, bring out the Dodge Charger, it's, you know, I get to the same place, but there's a lot of noxious combustion products. You know, so we have the ATP, and this is where fats and sugars are metabolized in the mitochondria to make ATP. It makes us move. We respire carbon dioxide, exchange for oxygen. Then you have exhaust, and then there's all these signalers and markers that come out of the mitochondria that send off different inflammatory pathways. And he was showing, this is the only one that I could actually comprehend because the rest was in biochemistry language. But I was like, because I see clinically, you know, things, and then, you know, the problem is in medicine is most clinicians don't understand or read research, and most researchers don't do clinical medicine. So I think, you know, you get everyone out into the field and work together, that's where you figure things out. I think there's something to this that we're probably going to know in about 5 years. Okay, a calorie is not a calorie. Different types of metabolism in your body might be different, and in different genetic people are going to set off different cascades. I don't know. Very curious, though, about the exhaust. You know, and no kidding, everything I've read in the last 5 years supports what I thought to be true about 5 years ago, was that the low-fat, heart-healthy diet may not be just that. That maybe there is a reason to eat healthy fat, because we certainly weren't winning the battle with obesity, and certainly weren't winning the battle with coronary disease. And, you know, and this is, you know, sometimes you have what are called epidemiologic, you know, they're not trials, they're just cohorts of people that live and eat in certain ways. And you get some data from that. Then you start to do what are called randomized, controlled, prospective trials. And this one was just released this week. You know, effects of low carbohydrate and low fat diets, randomized trial. This made all New York Times, Time Magazine, you know, and no kidding, you know, the outcomes in cardiovascular events were less, weight loss better in the low carbohydrate group. So we're finally seeing the data confirming a lot of what you guys will learn in the next couple days about basic science. You know, no kidding, it's just like big pharma, big agri, big companies control all these consumer brands. We're not going to go into that. Okay, this was an anomaly in 1903, 2012. Looks pretty normal. This is what you see. Donut land there. Whose responsibility is this? I think it's yours. I'm in the military now, 25 years in. And what is really sad is that now over a quarter of youth down there at Martinsburg High School, probably more because they're in West Virginia, will not be eligible for military service because of their weight. And I've seen people's lives change by opportunity of being able to join the military. You know, you've got kids from poor backgrounds, single families. I mean, I'll go over and talk to the ROTC, junior ROTC. I mean, kids, they need a way out. And right now, we're selecting kids out, and they're going to go work at McDonald's. Have you all seen these CDC slides? So you don't need me to kind of replicate that. But what you also see here is things kind of travel together, not just obesity, but physical activity, happiness, diabetes, heart disease, soda. I don't know what causes what, but things travel together. You know, and it's not just USA, it's the world, sugar supply and diabetes. You know, the maps look pretty similar. What happens is it tends to be about a 10-year lag. This slide I'm going to spend about a minute on because this is important. And you guys, how many of you all have rounded with me at the hospital with the plates? Yeah, so most of y'all there now. How many of y'all can go out, get a little workout in, come home, eat a piece of pizza, and you're fine? Yeah, you're over here. You still have carbohydrate sensitivity, meaning empty the tank, fill it. Your mitochondria can store glucose, glycogen, sensitive to insulin. Exercise sensitizes you to insulin. So you can actually empty the tank, fill it, you're good. I can still eat this way if I choose to. You know, you're kind of on the the carb train. It's kind of like checking account and savings accounts. If you're constantly in carbohydrate metabolism, it's like the checking account. Easy access. If you're going to tap into fat metabolism, someone actually wants to lose weight, you got to get into the savings account, which is mobilizing fat. So if you are insulin resistant, and maybe you all have you don't know exactly what it is, but you know it when you see it in the hospital when they eat French toast and the sugar's 300. So are these people insulin resistant, carbohydrate intolerant? Yes, they're different. Their body has no idea what to do with carbohydrates. I call it, with patients, I call it carbohydrate intolerance because they kind of get that. So if I speak, with Prasant and he's there with type 2 diabetes, if I say Prasant, your body's carbohydrate intolerant. Meaning you can't, it makes a little more sense to a patient versus insulin resistant. They're like, we kind of know what that means, we think, but you have to try to, it's the same thing. And some of that can reverse just with change of diet, activity, but no kidding, everyone is genetically different. Do you think a Native American or an Eskimo genetically, who's probably never had a single carbohydrate their whole life, some of them, and then you bring in the Western diet into that group, do you think they're going to be different than someone who's been brought up in Kenya, who's eaten ugali, which is a whole grain through generations? Do you think they're going to have a different carbohydrate just by their genetic makeup? Or the Europeans, a lot of them do eat breads. They don't like white Wonder Bread, but no kidding, they're the French paradox. I mean, look at what they eat, but they're different than other people. So this can change through time. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think every adult in the room knows that for all of us, I'm 47, I know I'm a little more, kind of over here now. I see it in my family members, I see it in everyone. My dad lost 30 pounds in the last 6 months just because I gave him one, he's a smart guy, I gave him one sheet of paper, he got rid of all the bread, he was over here, and he lost 30 pounds, just like that. Just like, he's Italian, Yeah, we've seen that. This is kind of curious too. I order T-shirts for Freedom's Run, and if you look at, and I speak to people that are these T-shirt manufacturers. So now, like the trend in T-shirt ordering sizes is going up. We tend to size up now. Kids, do you think kids choose to be obese? Do you think they're lazy? Do you think they're gluttonous? All right, you're going to hear more from Lustig there. Yeah, you're going to hear more about that. Do you think we're just not aware, like this is just some hidden epidemic? We all know about it. Should we just tell people to eat less? Is that going to work? Just restrict, eat less? What's the body going to want to do? Yeah, conserve. Go to the gym, just burn more, burn more, burn more. Is that any way that people are going to live through their whole lives? You think the well places in the world just go to the gym and burn off everything they eat? Or somehow they have a homeostasis? Yeah, the well places have a homeostasis. This probably makes some sense. You go down here, have your sugar snack, and you go up to the gym and swing your kettlebells or something. Do you think we are designed to count calories? Do you think that's actually possible for humans to count calories? Have a clue? Think people are accurate when they count calories? You can be. Only people that are really on it. Usually with products that are prepared products. If you're eating a whole food, real food diet, like I think I have any idea. I showed you my stinky omelet. How many calories, grams of fat, protein, carbohydrate that had? Did I care? No. I'll be hungry later today. I'll eat. But I have no idea. So brain, okay, happy, good, full, maybe hungry later. Yeah, so it doesn't work. Most people are off by a factor of 2. Is this new? This was called a paper in 1974 called the Saccharin disease, and this is kind of one of the summary statements. The clear evidence is that ill health, blah, 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 appear in pre-industrial communities immediately after the introduction of sugar, white flour, other refined carbohydrates. There's no proven link to any sudden increase in habitual fat intake. Book explains this more. So Ansel Keys was not a clinician, never taught it a single patient. And he was a very kind of public, they call him K-rations. He was the guy who developed the K-rations for World War II. So he was a very self-promoting kind of guy, nutritionist. And he picked out 7 countries. And selectively what he said was these 7 countries. And there was a lot of data around this that was around the war, which actually changed how people were eating. And actually one of the countries he had here It was studied during Lent when they got rid of most of the fatty foods, and they tried to make an association. But he pulled out these 6 countries out of what really is about 40 countries and made a line and said, high fat, high heart disease, low fat, low heart disease, let's change things. No prospective data. No prospective data. In 1977, this actually translated to policy. U.S. government, USDA, came out with the food pyramid and said this reduced overall fat consumption from 40 to 30% of energy intake. So what do you think happened after that? Did we do it? Yeah. What happened, and Lustig's videos will show more, what happened to obesity curves? Yeah, I don't know, it's direct causation, association, I don't know. This guy's on it, Gary Taubes. Read some of his stuff. He wrote this book about 10 years ago. It's over there. He's an investigative journalist, Ivy League guy who spent 10 years researching everything about nutrition before he had the guts to write that book. And a lot of his stuff now is, there's a movie we're going to watch later this semester called Fed Up when it gets released on Netflix or so we can stream it, which has a lot of these guys. I kind of call them the rock stars of nutrition because they challenged everything, not blindly. They spent 10 years and then maybe I'll come out of the closet and say this stuff. This is our heart model. Eat burger, elevate cholesterol, clog arteries. It may not be so simple. Here was the 1977 guideline that kind of came out of that. No reduced fat, switch saturated fat to vegetable fats, reduce cholesterol to 1 egg a day, eat more carbohydrate, especially grains. Here's the rest of the countries that fall in. So these countries eat more saturated fat, have less heart disease. These did not show up on Ansel Keys' study. These countries have less saturated fat, more heart disease, less heart disease. So, you could pick whatever countries you want and make the lines go wherever you want. But again, there's a great book. It's over there. It's by Nina Teicholz, and she, again, took about 10 Teicholz, and she wrote a book called Big Fat Surprise, which kind of went into she's got about 400 studies quoted in this book about saturated fats. And there was a huge meta-analysis like 1 month ago that came out showing no association of saturated fats with heart disease. All right, so fat-free, sugar, no added sugar. There's a lot of marketing out there. So with patients, you got to try to fight through the marketing. No fat, but what's in there? It's all carbohydrate. This is great. Bob has 36 candy bars. He eats 29. What does he have now? Diabetes. Bob has diabetes. I didn't make this one up. Students for a donut eating contest for you can't see it there because of the thing, but it's a donut eating contest for diabetes awareness. So I don't know. Maybe we should be eating more of this stuff. We'll have Dr. Now talk about oils and things. Can you eat just 1 slice a day? And this is the Lord of the Rings guy. I'm going to fly through this. Is this better than butter? I don't know. We'll see in the oils thing. True or false? Low-fat milk is a healthy choice for you and your family. Any evidence that drinking low-fat milk reduces obesity in kids? Yeah, the opposite may be true. There was actually an article in Journal of Pediatrics about 3 months ago showing the association of high fat, and or not high fat, normal milk, real milk versus low fat. And I think it was either no correlation or actually the real milk drinkers had a little bit less. So obesity is not the disease. So I'm not out there telling people to fight obesity. I'm not into this camp of fighting obesity because it's really metabolic disease we're after. Because you can be well and be of a high BMI. So unless you know what it is, your target is that you're fighting, metabolic syndrome is really what it is. And I think the layers, all these mismatched diseases might play into this spectrum of metabolic dysfunction. Dementia is the scariest one. And you read the papers every day, and this is terrifying to people. We don't know all the causes of dementia, but we do know there is an association of diet and dementia. Not direct causation. There's so many factors play in, but that could be something coming. How are these things associated? Lustig's videos are going to talk about this, so I'm not going to go into this. Old model and new model. So this is kind of the old model. We eat bad food, we become obese, and then we become insulin resistant. Beta cells burn out, and then you end up on insulin as a type 2 diabetic. But maybe this is kind of what happens. We eat bad food, insulin levels go up. What does insulin do? It does a lot. But at very primal level, it's a storage hormone. storage hormone, but it also blocks fat mobilization. So when insulin is up, your body has no idea what to do with body fat other than storage. You can't use it. So I think this is the model. You got to attack this, bring down insulin levels. Don't just keep injecting every type 2 diabetic with more insulin. Try not figure it out. Because no kidding, less carbs, less insulin. This is the body's, this is one of those insulin tests, where they measure your basal insulin. Obviously, it's how you eat affects it. How do you think they treated type 1 diabetes before we had insulin? I mean, people just didn't die immediately. I mean, they had it. What did they do? Read about this. It's fascinating. They didn't die immediately. Basically, they just stopped all the carbohydrates. Because they all had, we heard that honeymoon period, right? You all heard about that? Yeah, so basically you shut down, the need for insulin. And they had just a trickle. I mean, ultimately, people succumbed. But they had quite a, reasonable life expectancy, some of them, if they had just enough to just keep them out of ketoacidosis. Ketosis and ketoacidosis, completely different things. Ketoacidosis is bad. Nutritional ketosis, actually, if you're trying to lose weight, is the ideal optimal state. That is how you'll lose weight. But yeah, lots of grains, lots of insulin. This is 30 grams of carbs. We'll talk a little bit later about net carbs. When you look at fiber, okay, there's 4 grams of carbs, but there's 3 grams of fiber. What does that mean versus just 4 grams of carbs? Anyone heard of net carbs? What the hell is that? It's really important. Yeah, it's really important. Yeah. Leptin. Know what leptin is? You don't see it, but I'm full. My daughter eats, she'll stop midway, Daddy, I'm full. Leptin at work. Insulin blocks leptin's response. We want leptin to work. I mean, we all want to know when we're full. We all want to know when we're full. We're not going to go into all the different things about sugar. Recipe for disaster. Salt, fat, and this kind of, they call it the bliss point. This was from a New York Times magazine article. A guy actually wrote a book, I forget the name of the book, but it was all about it was called Salt, Fat, what the heck was the name of it? But amazing, just a 6-page article about, investigative reporting into how they design stuff that's on that table over there to taste really good. Salt, sugar, fat, and they called it the bliss point, like this magic place that just tastes really good, and it does. It tastes really good. No kidding. All of us love that stuff. But that's what you're up against. It is a recipe for disaster. All of this stuff. How should we eat? This is my wife's grandma at 101. She didn't do any cardio. She wasn't svelte, but she lived and she died at 103 in her own home. Needed a hip replacement at 99. But I did a lot of this kind of cardio, but basically never ate anything that was outside of, she lived in the Bronx, so she never owned a car. Never knew how to drive. Everything was within a block. And she ate some bread, but she wasn't carb intolerant. The blue zones. How many of y'all have heard of the blue zones? Yeah, so here's a true Mediterranean diet. Here, we'll talk a little bit about the blue zones. This is kind of the modern Mediterranean diet. See the difference? When someone says they eat a Mediterranean diet, I don't know. Yeah, the grandma's diet was Mediterranean. This is her calamari and shrimp scampi. If you exercise, you can actually have the pasta and be just fine. The blue zones, these are the longevity pockets. It was a National Geographic project about 10 years ago where they circled the areas on the map in blue, which had more population that lived to 100 than anywhere else on the world. So this guy, Dan Buettner, went and immersed for about a year in each of these places just to understand everything about how they lived. And do you think all these places ate the same thing? No, they ate totally different things, but there's so many commonalities. They all ate real food, mostly a plant-based diet. I mean, they all had plant foods in there, but some had meat, some no meat, some had wine, some no wine. They all had community. None of them were in a hurry all the time. They didn't put grandma in the nursing home. I mean, so many layers to it. They all moved naturally. They didn't sit on their arses. They didn't play with their blackberries and stuff. We're going to show a video later. Everything that I think we knew about nutrition was started to be discovered by this guy in 1930. His name was Weston Price. His son died of a tooth infection, and he was a dentist in Cleveland. So he set out to answer the question, why does my generation have tooth decay? My grandparents' generation didn't have tooth decay. So he spent 10 years in the 1930s traveling the world looking for places without tooth decay. And we quickly discovered that the places that had no tooth decay were the uber well. So we started to make a connection of nutrition. I mean, how many of y'all see bad teeth in clinic? Are we designed to have rotten teeth by age 3? No. Think about it next time you're in clinic. Think of the general health of that 5-year-old who has rotten teeth. And find one of them that's in like uber good health. I think you'd be challenged. Even the adults, the ones whose teeth have fallen out, a lot of them have metabolic diseases but yeah, I mean, he researched all this stuff too. It's crazy. His book's over there. These are just some pictures of well kids. We're going to see some of his videos. You know, the facial bone develops really early, actually before birth, and all these essential nutrients affect the jaw growth. And so you notice that the kids with the thinner faces had more disease and illness. A couple generations go by, facial shapes change, which is way different than normal genetic change. If things shift in a generation, something else is going on. That's not just a genetic shift. And we've seen this. Gosh, what a tragedy. Has anyone worked on an Indian reservation or an Eskimo, Native American? Yeah, they all have diabetes, almost 100%. Almost 100%. Why? Now you could, in West Virginia, you have a lot of people look like this, but they all don't have diabetes. Probably something genetic. These folks had never seen carbohydrate, you know, at least in the ways that, and then you bring it in. The Eskimos especially, I got to work up in Nome, Alaska for about 3 months, and we went out to all these villages, and they all had diabetes. Just sad, all of them, yeah. These kids are well kids, modern kids. I'm going to fly through a few things just to finish it. Let me go 5 more minutes here. Life in its fullness is Mother Nature obeyed. We're going to talk about exercise and movement tomorrow. 2000 BC, eat this plant, mostly the root. The root's properties are best to restore health. Then we kind of go down this pathway. Prayer superstitious, you know, take the potion, snake oil, take the pill. Okay, pill doesn't work, take the antibiotic. So where are we in 2014? Antibiotic, artificial, eat the plant, mostly the root, help restore body to health. So there's nothing really new under the sun. Old paradigm and new paradigm. How many of you have read a little bit about the microbiome? This is really important. There's like 6 pounds of healthy bacteria in our gut. There's more bacteria in our gut than cells in our body. How we eat influences this. How we eat influences this. And this influences a lot. I mean, we're just starting to look under the hood. You know, gosh, this is my friend Andy Burfoot, shared an email with me. He won the 1968 Boston Marathon, really well guy, and he got an infection, some kind of cellulitis, and they gave him an antibiotic. Then he got C. diff. And for about 3 months, he was, I mean, you all have seen the C. diff that you can't get rid of, so he lost about 20 pounds, everything. He got depressed. He got like really, really depressed. Like his brain was like, he said he was in this place that he didn't think he could get out of. And ultimately he recovered. And then right now he's doing, he does all kinds of scientific writing now. He kind of wants to read and learn about everything. Basically he just reads journals all the time now. And he started to read about the microbiome. And he wrote this to me, my next life I'm going to study the microbiome. So he was like, wow, this is fascinating, because he was living it. Finally got himself well, and he finished the Boston Marathon this past year. Okay, standard American diet selects organisms poised to metabolize simple sugars. Are these organisms setting off this inflammatory cascade? Maybe. Real foods select organisms that thrive on resistant starch and complex carbs. So the microbiome is real deal. I mean, we're now learning about these fecal transplants and things. I mean, unless you change your diet, I think it's all hogwash. You know, so eco-literacy. You know, I think we're trying to teach kids, you know, what to do to live well and understanding where food comes from, you know, how to protect the land, nurture soils. I mean, this is a whole education, but if, you know, we don't understand this stuff, you know, from a society in the next generation, I think we're in trouble. There's a guy, my wife works with him, he's up at NYU, he wrote an article called The Obesity Microbiome, meaning he was drawing associations to all the hormonal-fed animals to how it changes a human microbiome that was potentially setting off cascades for obesity. Fascinating stuff. I mean, no kidding. The smart guys in the house are the ones who are doing they're the PhD types. You know? They're the ones like figuring this stuff out. And it's like, whoa, you know, fascinating article. Weapons of mass destruction. You know, these companies support research activities which promote the unproven theory that obesity is due to reduced energy output and independent of changes of energy intake. All right, kids, you know, a lot of marketing out there. You guys are in the, you know, you're kind of in the jungle of all this now, so to speak, you know, in the belly of the beast, because everything you see, so my disclosures are nothing here today. I'm not brought to you by, you know, the Eat Healthy Fat Foundation or something. But medical conferences are supported by Coca-Cola. Exercise is Medicine is a website. I really like the website. They are funded by Coca-Cola. Here it is, coaching clients toward lasting weight loss. You know, the dietetics conferences, these national conferences sponsored by Coca-Cola, Kellogg's, Big Agra, Big Soy, all this stuff. I don't know. I mean, here's Ontario Healthy Kids, sponsored by Coca-Cola. West Virginia, this is real slide at the obesity conference in Morgantown, serving donuts and bagels. I was just like, this is crazy. Who made the menu for this stuff? It's crazy. McDonald's even gets it. This is internal. They tell their employees, eat this, not this. Do not eat our food. Do not eat our food. Okay, this is actually a real couple. They sell these on Amazon. Free diabetes medications. Do not enter. The best advice, we should have a billboard for this. Do not enter, do not enter, do not enter. All right, I'm going to stop there because probably later tomorrow we'll get a little bit into the try this, but I want to show just my concluding slides. This is all about local interventions you can do, you know, we'll talk about the plates later. All right. This is true. You lose pounds in the kitchen and ounces in the gym. Pounds in the kitchen, ounces in the gym. You guys will experience this. I had a blast last year doing this with you guys because I want to learn. In my next life, I want to be a chef. And I want to learn how to cook because this is fun. And not many of y'all. Any of y'all have kids? And you know, it takes really simple things to please your kids. And my kids are like every night they're like, "Wow, Daddy's becoming like a great chef." And usually it's like I have like 2 ingredients and just doing something different. But they're trying it, and we're having fun, and I let them help me. And we completely flail and fail half the time. But that's okay. It's fun. Because I did not learn jack about this stuff in medical school. You know, you guys get to do this, but your predecessors prepared food for 100 folks last spring. That was inspiring. This is my daughter and grandma, age 86. So she's this cutting board here, or pasta board, was from my grandmother, or my wife's grandmother. The thing's over 100 years old. And it's probably made billions of pounds of fresh pasta. You know, so this is fresh pasta. It's got egg and flour, and that's it. Period. You know, so that's the real stuff. Dr. Murray, he's my hero. This dude is it. You guys get to work with Dr. Murray? Yeah. So he went all in. Yeah, talk to Dr. Murray, and he'll tell you what the deal is. Eat real food, move more, do it local. 2 last slides. The greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. I've observed that the world has suffered far less from ignorance than from pretensions to knowledge. It is not skeptics or explorers, but fanatics and ideologues who menace decency and progress. No agnostic ever burned anyone at the stake. So again, beginner's mind, you know, I'm in the beginner's mind. And this is kind of what I've seen with a lot of stuff in my short life. You know, tomorrow we'll talk a little bit about exercise science. You know, my other whole world is running biomechanics and footwear and stuff like that. Is that every scientific truth goes through 3 states. First, people says it conflicts with the Bible. Next, they say it has been discovered before. Lastly, they always believed it. So I was like a voice in the wilderness talking about any of this stuff like 5 years ago. You actually piss some people off. because they're like, man, what you're telling people is really, really, really dangerous. To tell them to, maybe have the egg instead of toast for breakfast. And I said, I'm not sure, but, you go read it, you decide, it's your body. And, now obviously everything is completely shifting, and I don't know where it's all going to go. It's a revolution, is what it is. You guys are part of the revolution. Your kids depend on it. Martin Luther King, like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over and seen the promised land. So this is your journey.